Welcome everyone back for another NetBox community call. This is the April edition here. And before we get too deep in, just want to run through what we're going to step through this month. We're going to have some community news. We do have presentations like we normally have. Our thank you notes to everyone. And then at the very end, if we have a little extra time, we'll just open up for discussion. Before we get past this, though, one of the things that we found has been working really well for these meetings is really treating them like a community conversation. If you've not seen any of the older calls that we were doing, they were more of just a YouTube stream where Jeremy and I, or Jeremy and somebody else and a guest would come on, and it would be more of a broadcasted conversation. What's been really fun for these is getting the involvement from the audience. So you'll see we're in a very typical Zoom meeting here. As part of that, I'd like to invite everyone who is comfortable with doing so, or if you have the ability to turn on your cameras. It's fun that we get to see each other and have a little more of that face-to-face interaction. It's obviously not mandatory, but if you're in a position and you wouldn't mind, we'd love to see you as well. So in community news, a kind of cool thing happens, and this is obviously on the NetBox Lab side. We had the Series A announcement come out, and in Times Square had this advertisement, I suppose, or this congratulatory note from NASDAQ going up, just thanking us or congratulating us on that round. So obviously, this is on the NetBox Lab side, but Jeremy, I'd imagine it was a pretty cool thing for you to see this fly up in Times Square.
Yeah, it was pretty cool for sure. It definitely makes it feel more real.
Yeah, that's I don't know if you've ever, for the audience, if you've never been to Times Square, but it's a very loud, bright place, and to see the name up there with all of the other logos, I wish I could have seen it in person, but it's a pretty cool thing. So Jeremy, I think I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about version 3.5 coming up. I know the beta is already out there. The beta demo is out there for people to play with, but could you walk into 3.5 a little bit for us?
Yeah, I won't spend too much time on it, but basically, as Jordan said, we had the first beta release go out, I think, at the very end of March, and then we put out the second beta release last week. Lots of great feedback, lots of bug fixes. Appreciate everyone. Thank you very much, everyone who's tested it, either locally or by visiting beta-demo.netbox.dev. And I think we're in a great place for a release. So we're, per our thrice yearly schedule, we'll go ahead and kick out version 3.5 in a little bit, probably either tomorrow or Thursday, depending on how calendars shake out and what. We'll also, of course, need to get 3.4.9 out before that, so that'll come out either today or tomorrow, and that will be the last release of NetBox 3.4, and then we'll have 3.5 the following day. And I invite everyone to check that out. It's got a ton of new features in it. The headliners are the ability to synchronize data remotely from external sources. So that's things like GitHub repos and S3 buckets to pull that data in and use it to as content for NetBox objects, such as configuration contexts, export templates, and another new feature now is config template rendering. So we have the ability to define config templates in NetBox and then render those for devices natively using config context data and just object attributes that you'd find in NetBox. So kind of a natural progression from export templates and config contexts. Now we have the ability to render device configs natively as well. Another cool thing is the custom dashboard. We've already got a number of widgets that allow people to customize their dashboard on NetBox 3.5 to do things like show arbitrary counts of objects and filtered lists and things like that. And I'm sure we'll be adding a lot more types of dashboard widgets over time. So check that out. I think it's pretty cool. And there's a bunch more stuff I won't go into to save some time here, but you can find the release notes on NetBox. On GitHub. And again, look for that release coming out later this week.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. So if you've not seen, typically when these versions come out, we'll throw a few videos up on the YouTube channel that walk through some of those new features, show you how to interact with them a bit so that you have an understanding of what those look like, how to interact with them. So I don't know that we'll have those ready exactly when 3.5 ships, but shortly thereafter, you'll see some videos out there on how to leverage some of those new features. So that'll be fun. We're also getting close to our 2023 community survey. So if you've not seen that in the past, we do that once a year just to get a bit of a temperature check on the NetBox community. Who are the users? What industry are we in? How many devices are you managing? Just some general questions around usage. That all gets compiled in and shared out to the community. I think there's going to be a couple question changes and rephrases that happens from year to year. But if you've ever participated in one before, you'll have an idea of what we're looking to gather. And then we get to see those, how they change year over year. It is moving this year to line up more with the release cycle. I don't know if anybody has it on their calendar as a reoccurring event, but if you do, you're going to have to change that because we're moving it a bit. I think, Jeremy, you might be the only one who has it on the calendar as a reoccurring thing.
Even I don't, I'll admit. But yeah, we decided to push it back a little bit. Historically, we had done it, I'm going to say March, and we pushed it back a little bit just to synchronize, to line up more with the thrice yearly. I need to come up with a better word for that, but the 3 times a year that we do releases. So it'll coincide now with the release of NetBox 3.5, and we'll keep it open for about a month. And I'll just reiterate, from the open source side, this survey is one of the few crucial tools that we have to actually get direct feedback, solicited feedback from end users. NetBox, being an open source tool, does not have any form of registration. It doesn't have any mechanism for us to glean direct feedback from people other than those who take the initiative to participate on Slack and on GitHub discussions and comment on issues and so forth. So everyone who can, please fill out that survey. It is very, very useful, both in terms of the demographic data we get, but also learning more about how people use NetBox. And we really take that feedback to heart and use it to guide the direction of NetBox's development going forward over the long term. So I appreciate everyone who can take the time to fill that out. It's only we keep it really short too. It's about maybe 12 to 15 questions. Shouldn't take more than a few minutes to fill out. So again, really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's one of those things where I frequently hear the question asked of how can I get involved with NetBox, but I'm not a coder and I'm not encountering bugs. This is a real good way for anyone out there who wants to help us out in a slightly different way. It's not bugs or feature requests specifically, I guess in filling out the GitHub form, but this is a great way for the community to get involved and share some of that feedback. So we'd all appreciate it. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to presentations. So we have, let me share my screen here. We have 3 scheduled for today. So we have Kenneth Garcia going first. He's going to be talking about his network config tracker. Then Alex, I apologize, Alex. I forgot how I did not ask you how to pronounce your last name. So I'm going to do the best in the moment, and then you can correct me. I'm going to say Bortok.
It's Bortok. You put a typo there. There should be no L at the end.
Ah, all right. Well, then that's on us. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
And then at the very end, we have Renato Oliveira, who's going to, Alex will be talking about Netreplica NRX. And then Renato Oliveira will be talking about his plugin NBRisk. So Kenneth, you can go ahead and take over the screen share when you are ready.
Okay.
And before you start, just so the audience knows, at the end of each of these 3 presentations, we'll save a little time for question and answers that anyone may have as part of this. Going to try and keep it around 10 minutes for each presentation. And then if we have more time at the end of the full session, that's when we'll open it back up and we can have some more questions. But Kenneth, take it away.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hello everyone. So I'm gonna be showing you the tool I have created on my own environment, which is, I called it Network Config Tracker. And basically, this is my GitHub page, the documentation for it, and you could scan this QR code if you want to have a quick look on it. So, okay, then I'll be proceeding next with my initial problem statement and use case. Why did I build this tool, and what are my initial requirements? So initially I was, okay, not initially, but first, I want to leverage on NetBox as my primary source of truth for those devices that we are managing. So I want the flexibility of adding and removing those managed devices rather than manually keying it in a manual inventory text file, which that's what I'm doing before. And next would be to retrieve the running configuration of the multiple devices concurrently. So in parallel on my own preferred pre-configured time interval. So nextly is to save the most running configuration to a Git repository for any configuration differences that are identified. Only if there's a config change. So if there's not, so it should not be updating a Git repository. And next it would be so this one, just to update the last configuration change date if there's any delta on the network device. So this one is on NetBox. And next would be to, I want to see also historical changes on the configuration that was made for any network devices. So this one can help me on the, just want to see what's story of this device for multiple network admins that's doing changes to the network devices. Good thing when you're troubleshooting what went wrong and some P1 case is happening. So, okay. And next would be to, I want the capability of alerting us via email for any network configuration change, along with the details of the change. And lastly, I want it to be able to support multiple network operating systems. So this would be my problem statement and use case. So actually, this tool I've been building for several years. So I started it for a very simple use case, and eventually it got more complicated with these requirements that I have. Okay, so going on. This would be the logic flow of a sample network environment that you can have for this tool to work. So basically, you would need a Linux server that can run Python and your own NetBox instance and GitLab also. And then these are the just a sample switch one and router one, and then this is network admin. Okay, and then next, I have created here the logic flow of this simulated environment. If you example, you have one router and a switch that is managed by NetBox in the NetBox, and Python will be running the script. So I'm not sure if it's visible for you, but you can check the page and you can zoom in a bit more so you could read more details. So this is the traffic flow of, or I would say the logic flow, how my script is, logic is working on this one. So yeah, here are all the one by one steps, and you could see for steps 3 to 8 and 10 to 15, they are running in parallel to quickly execute the task at the same time to multiple devices for it to be completed as fast as it could. So okay, for this one, so first there's patching the.
Hey, Kenneth,
Sorry.
can I jump in for just a second?
Yes.
So could I possibly convince you to jump into the demo parts
Okay.
of your presentation? And really, we can share the screens or your slides out for everyone afterwards to walk through.
Mhm.
But if you would be okay with that, pivoting over, we want to try and keep it around 10 minutes, and I'm really eager to see what it looks like.
Okay. Then here we go. So just a quick one. These are just the currently supported operating system that is available for this one. And okay. So one requirement is that you should have the device managed in the NetBox with the status active with the primary IPv4. And then after that one, so basically on how you would run the script, just if you have downloaded it already in your local Python environment, you just execute the script, and the script will execute the configuration pool, and it will update Git if any diff is found. So for the example, I do some changes here. As you can see here on R1, the NetBox status was updated, and what are the changes? So basically, once there's changes, you will see this email from GitLab indicating that, okay, so this is the actual config change email that you will receive. Hold on, let me just write this one. Okay, so it will indicate that these are the details of the changes using the GitLab format itself, indicating which device. So the device name is this dev R1, which is the device name that what we have configured here in NetBox. So it will just use the same name. And then after that, actually on this one, I have created a custom link in NetBox so that I could just click on that custom link in the device object page, so that when I click it here, you could see here the running config, it will redirect you to the GitLab page, local GitLab portal. And yeah, here are the more detailed history of the changes. And then here you could check all the commit that has been done to a particular or specific devices. And then also just the last config change, it will be updated as well after the script execution. And yeah, that's it. That's the quite simple one, Ollie.
That's it's actually really nice. Did you get fed up with rancid and oxidized and decide to implement your own config utility?
Yes, actually, because you will see my initial requirement, and basically I want native integration with NetBox, and I can't rancid. I didn't figure out, but oxidize or didn't have native integration. So basically, I also, part of me, I want to explore. I want to know more on the network automation side. So yeah, I got to go with writing my own code for this one. So far, it works for me. Yeah.
Very nice. We had somebody ask a question in how are you pulling out the running config, which I have a feeling I rushed you through the slide where you would have shown that off, but how are you pulling the running configs off?
So okay, the running configs are being pulled using where's that part? Okay. Actually, it's via SSH for iOS. The rest, except for NXOS, which have NX API option. So primarily, it will try NX API for NXOS, and then if it fails, it will go to SSH. And all this SSH are being run through by Napalm plugin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice. Awesome. Yeah, I'll have to spend a little time with that plugin. I know that's a frequent thing we hear out in the public is, we'd like to make sure that our configurations are backed up. That's what network engineers need to do. So it's great to see that you've put something together that others can reuse. Thanks for sharing. Excellent. So if there are any more questions for Kenneth, we'll have some more time at the end. But until then, Alex, if you are ready, I invite you to go ahead and start sharing and talking about Netreplica.
Hello, everyone. Yes, sure. So I'm going to talk about another open source tool. It's called NRX, and it stands for NetReplica Exporter. So what this tool does essentially takes data from NetBox and allows you to spin up a copy of your portion of your network in a software networking lab environment like Containerlab or some other options as well. So let me get to the demo right away. All right. So what I have here is a NetBox instance with a couple of sites. So if you look at this site, it has a few devices, and I can even try to visualize how they look like. So it should, they look like this. It's a small data center fabric, 2-layer claw with a few test servers connected to them. So what I'm going to do now, I will try to stand up this topology using Containerlab. So what it takes is to run NRX, give it a configuration file. Mainly, it points to the NetBox instance, to its API. And then I want to export this site called DC1, and I want that to be in the Containerlab output format. So if I do that, it connects, pulls the data out, and then we should get this file over here. So once I have this file, I can launch my Containerlab instance, which I do like this, club deploy, and then I will give it a file name. Okay, so it's booting up right now. It will take some time, so let me walk you through what's happening here. So if I open up the file itself, zoom in a little bit. So it's a YAML file that describes that, hey, I have a topology named DC1, and that topology has a bunch of nodes, each of them representing a network device, right? And it has some configuration about, what's the type of the device, what kind of image to use to launch it, and so forth, right? And at the very bottom, I have this information about links between the devices, right? Which interface of device connects to the other device's interface, right? So this file was generated by the NRX, and let me walk you through what does it take to do that. So this is just a short summary of the demo, and then. So first of all, we have a topology information that we need from NetBox, which consists of devices. Devices have interfaces, and then interfaces connected by cables. Right? These are the three building blocks we need to extract from NetBox database. So what happens here is that every device gets translated to be in a node definition in the Containerlab file. And then we are pulling the association of interfaces with the devices, and then the links between the interfaces via cables, and create this, link endpoints entries, right? Of course, there might be a lot of information of NetBox. Right now, I am filtering only by site. As you can see, what happens here is that I take the parameter that I give in the command line, and then I use that in the API call to filter the list of devices by site ID. And in addition to that, in my configuration file, I have this string that says what kind of device roles I'm interested in. Obviously, I don't want to emulate PDUs and stuff like that, right? So I limit that to only things that I'm interested in. And in reality, you probably would not do all the servers. And I'm looking forward to actually improve that. So maybe I can have a tag that would let me filter it down to a small subset of the devices. Right. So that filter allows me to narrow down what devices do I need to have in my topology. And then once I have that, the tool does some data mapping. So there are, besides those that I already mentioned, there are two critical items here in the middle. Role, yeah, we already said that's for filtering. And then there is platform. Platform is critical. It determines what kind of device is this. Is it Arista EOS, Cisco iOS, and so forth. And through the platform, I figure out, okay, what's the Ginger 2 template I need to render as part of my topology creation. So a little bit of information about that. So when I say NRX output club, that maps to a folder where all my templates are stored. And then when I look at the platform slug information, that maps to the file name, right? So essentially, like natively to Containerlab, you would expect templates called like COS, which is a containerized OS, right? And SRL for Nokia, SR Linux, and so forth. In reality, your platform would be something more like real hardware, right? So the good workflow would be to just create symlinks for the platform slug that you have and point that to the right template that would match the operating system that you have on the network devices, right? Right, so with that, let's see how did the deployment went. So here we have it. I'm gonna open up this link. And here is my topology, right? Where I have the devices instantiated. And for example, if I connect here, you can see that I can log into the device. Right. And I can see that I'm connected from the spine box. I'm connected to 4 leaves. And very important to note here is that, let me zoom it in, is the interface names, right? So you can see it uses realistic interface names as they were in NetBox instance. It is not the interface names that Containerlab uses. So there is a magic here that actually gives you at the end the same list of interface names as they are in NetBox, and so sort of hides all the complexities that Containerlab has. All right. Okay, so now let me see what else can we do here. Sorry for zooming like this. I wanted to show what else can we do. We can export data for Cisco modeling labs. So I'm just going to use a different data center, and I'm going to say the output should be CML. And then when that happens, I am going to take this file, right? And I'm going to import that into Cisco CML. All right. Oops, and it failed. I'm sorry. I guess I shouldn't keep that instance working overnight. Let me try to reload that. Well, never mind. Let's announce that experiment maybe is failed.
Well, the fact that that you've even taken CML into consideration as part of this, I really appreciate. As much as I love Containerlabs, getting Cisco to work in it is gray space at best.
Yeah, it was definitely more challenging. So let me see. It's kind of zoomed for me back and forth. I'm just trying to find out where my presentation was. Sorry for that. hold on a second. Let me just stop sharing for a second. I'll find this slide and then finish my speech here.
Sure. And while you're doing that,
Mhm.
I can generally say that's again, sort of echoing a bit there about the CML side, is it's a really decent product for running Cisco emulation software, or routers and switches and whatnot. I hope that one day Cisco opens it up a bit more in terms of container labs and makes it a little friendlier for you to run their operating systems outside of their environment. So repeating myself there, I really appreciate that you took CML into mind when designing this.
Yeah, thank you. So what I wanted to finish with is just where to get all this stuff. So if you can head to netreplica.com website, that will navigate you further to GitHub repositories for the tools that I use today. So NRX is the actual tool that works with NetBox. Then an interesting fact that NRX actually has no idea about any specific engine like Containerlab or CML. It's all in the templates. So essentially, if you want to add another network emulation tool over there, you just create a set of templates that would match how that tool, the syntax of the topology definitions and stuff like that. And then the third tool was that did the visualization of the Containerlab environment and had the WebSSH session that's called Graphite. All of these are available on the Netreplica GitHub repo, open source. Right.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you so much, Alex. We might have time for a question or two if someone wants to pop on, but if not, I have a feeling there'll be some good conversation at the end on this.
I know there were a couple other questions from the previous presentation as well. We'll try to come back to them at the culmination of the three that we have scheduled, and give people some more time to ask those.
All right, then maybe we'll just hold them all for the end. Let's again, thank you, Alex, so much. Renato, if you can go ahead and start your share, we'll let you get into your plugin.
All right. Share my screen. Can everyone see it?
Yes, coming through.
Okay. So risk management is plays an important role in cybersecurity awareness. And every time you do risk management, you need to have an inventory first. And that's why NetBox came. NetBox is a great tool for inventory management as a network source of truth. So I try to bring together the risk management process that is described by NIST 830 with NetBox inventory. So let's jump in. A little disclaimer. What's the idea when you're building some risk management? The first thing, you need to characterize your system by hardware, software, whatever thing you want to map vulnerabilities and try to map risks on it. And for NBRisk, I try to make it very flexible. So when you implement the plugin, you can choose whatever kind of model of NetBox you want. You can assign risk to platforms, assign risk to devices, and whatever model you place. So for example, when you have my instance of NetBox, you have the risk assessment plugin, and you can create vulnerabilities. But you can simply go and add and describe your vulnerability the way you want, or you can use the NIST CVE API. So you can go in filters, and let's say you have FortiWeb at 6.10 and certs. And it goes to NIST CVE APIs and get all the nosy vulnerabilities for the device. And then you can just pop up and create that vulnerability. Now that you have that vulnerability created, right now I haven't assigned it to any asset. But I can go into devices, go in device, select whenever device I want. Let's pick this one. And we can assign a vulnerability. List of our vulnerabilities. When you assign a vulnerability to the device, you have a new tab to the device view that you can check all of its vulnerabilities. You can go into our risk assessment vulnerabilities. You see how many affected assets. Go into the vulnerability and see all your devices right here. But the process comes from threat identification. And that's so the plugin allows you to map threat sources. Let's say I want to add some hackers. As a threat source, you can describe the intent of the source, the target, and descriptions and notes. Create it. You can create threat events tied to your vulnerabilities. Describe what the kind of event that's happening when, I guess that slide is a better description of the process. You have a threat source that initiates an event that exploits some vulnerabilities with predisposition conditions. You can plan and implement security controls that cause an impact and generates organizational risk. That's the base from how I model the NBRisk models, how I create the models. So let me go to a threat event. Let's say password leak from hackers. What kind of vulnerability these events are exploiting? Let's say it's exploiting the vulnerability from this device with this CV as assignment. And then you can create what impact. And then you create your threat events that are exploiting these vulnerabilities from these assets. That's going to be listing all of your assets and vulnerabilities. Once you have your threat source and vulnerabilities, you can create threat source, threat event vulnerabilities. You can create your risks. So let's say have a list of data loss tied to the event password leak, likelihood and level of impact of that risk. Okay, and you all can also create controls for that risks. So you may add a control like password rotation and tied to any risks you want. Okay. When you create that control, you can use your journal to keep tracking whatever actions you do about that control. You have all of the related assets tied to that control and no risk that control is trying to mitigate. I guess I will go for all of the devices, and basically that's what the script is doing. I'm trying to work to get a better assignment of models. Right now, you can't do bulk assignments. That's something I would like to add into the plugin to the future, because right now you need to go to each desired device. Let's say not this one, and need to assign manually each vulnerability to each device. That can be a little boring. And once you assign the vulnerability, and now all your controls. That event. That threat event is exploiting only one vulnerability. You should add another one. Another control. You show all the related assets tied to that vulnerability. Well, following this step, you can map your threads. You can identify and search in your vulnerabilities based on your devices. You can create controls and see how affected assets for that control and what vulnerabilities it's trying to mitigate. create your risks, and see your controls again. Oh, I guess that's it. I had to show about the plugin. I don't know if I have filters. Vulnerability. Okay. The vulnerability you can search from the device types are based in the CPE names, that kind of string. So if you copy that and paste in CPE name, you should get all their vulnerabilities. Get another. Oh, that's in line. Okay, let's go for this one. Okay, and then you have your vulnerability search by the CPE name, and you can create it if you want.
Wow, that is quite nice. I can't count the number of times where I've had an internal pen test or vulnerability analysis done and have just been fed back a spreadsheet filled with information. The fact that you're thinking ahead to be able to correlate those to the devices in the place where we're already tracking our hardware is really phenomenal.
I guess that's the idea of the AI is still in a beta state, so have lots of things to add to make it. But if anyone like to add some comments, something like, for example, when I create controls, right now I'm using description, notes, category, and risk. I can add another kind of fields here before we go for indeed a release. Risk, the same thing. I can also work into the fields you have and trying to make it better too.
Well, I mean, this is so far, this is great. I remember when you showed me the very first beta version of this, which I can't remember how many months ago this was at this point,
Yeah.
and started to think ahead. Like, I cannot wait to see where you go with this. And this is going to be great for, well, security groups and really groups that don't have security groups as well. Like, this is going to be wonderful for really for everyone who's concerned about security, which I think is just about everyone these days.
Yeah.
Awesome.
In the future, you can think in, right now, the vulnerability search isn't tied to an API. It doesn't create an API for do an API call. I don't think that's make much sense. But you could make some custom script or something that goes into your device types and versions, gather the available CVEs, and tie to the device and create your risks and vulnerabilities and everything else.
Oh, then we're really having fun when we start making those correlations.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's go ahead. I'm assuming there's going to be some questions. Let's hold on to questions for just a moment. Let me wrap things up, and then we'll open the floor for more questions for all the presenters. Thank you so much, though, Renato, for that. That was absolutely marvelous. So as we do close down here, we're going to share a link for a survey in the chat here. That was just a quick survey about the session today. It'll only take you a minute or so to fill out. So when that pops through, if you could take a minute or two before we close down, fill that out, we would definitely appreciate it. There's that link. Sorry, Maggie, I should have given you a heads up that I was going to pivot into that. Thank you for getting that up there so quickly. So really, thanks to our presenters. These events continue to be successful because of that participation, because of the work that you're doing out there in the fields. If anyone out there would like to be a presenter in the future, You can follow us on our socials, and we'll have ways to communicate that back at us. You can tweet at us. I believe we have a form that you can fill out as well. But keep in mind that you don't need to be a plugin developer or an application developer or anything like that to be part of these presentations. If you have a fun way of using NetBox that you'd like to show off a bit, just a different way of thinking about how you can model the cloud or different environments inside of NetBox, we're always looking to have people come on and really just have a fun conversation like we did today. So thank you, Alex, Kenneth, and Renato for being part of that. Also like to call out Rodrigo Magnari. He's been doing a lot of work prototyping the workflow modeling in NetBox. Jeremy, if you have a second, can you color in those lines a little bit for me? I'm not 100% certain what he's been up to.
I apologize. I didn't prepare notes on that for this
okay.
for this meeting, but I haven't been keeping super close tabs on him, unfortunately, with the 3.5 stuff coming up. But yeah, he's been very, very busy, and he's already done a ton of work on that, and that's something we're looking as we move toward our 3.6 planning now, as we transition to the second release for the year. That'll be front and center, and seeing what we can do to get that built into NetBox as well.
Awesome. Thank you. I started to throw you on the spotlight.
No worries.
Cool. All right. So that wraps up our official agenda. Thank you for attending. Presenters, I ask that you hang around. If anyone has any questions for them that you weren't able to get out, either in voice or text, this would be a great opportunity to do so.
While we are waiting, I can show how this is Containerlab import works.
Sure.
All right, let me just do that really quick. Share. Okay, guys, if you can see now, the CML interface should be working. I'm gonna import that file over here. All right, success. And here is the lab with all the interfaces between the nodes and so forth. Yep, I'm gonna launch it. It's gonna take a while, but you can see it's working. All right, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming back and showing that off. So just so everyone does know, there have been a few questions in there. Yes, these are recorded. The way that we typically share that out is we'll share out the full meeting so you can catch all of the fun in between conversations. And then we'll break out each of the demos into their own video as well and get those shared out, get the creators, the presenters tagged in those so that if you're following them, you're following us, you'll be able to see their presentations again.
By the way, if anyone have questions, later gonna try it and need the help, I am available on the NetBox community channel. So I created a sub-channel there called Netreplica, so you guys can ask your questions there.
Awesome. So if no one has any questions, Alex, I have a question for you.
Sure.
On the CML side, what network operating systems do you have in there, or is it just all Cisco in your CML environment?
Okay, good question. So essentially what it comes down to is what kind of templates I created so far. And those that I did just for iOS and iOS layer 2, as well as an XIS 8000. But pretty much the way it works, if you have a different node that it's not in the template repository so far, you just can copy one of the existing templates, update few fields, and it should be easy to keep going, or reach out to me on Slack and I'll help you to come up with that template.
Sure. Have you attempted, just out of curiosity, and it was brought up in chat that it is possible to run other vendors inside of CML. Have you gone down that route and attempted to bring something like a Juniper or a Vios online inside of CML by chance?
I haven't tried yet, but definitely planning to do so.
I can speak a little bit to, at least to the Vios side. I hadn't tackled Juniper just yet, but Cisco, they definitely do let you run other
Yeah, they do.
other operating systems. It's of course they make the Cisco stuff easier to turn on, but I think it'd be interesting to see how well this your tool scales into the third parties inside of CML, if it works as seamlessly or needs a little tweaking. So that'll be an interesting thing to check out.
I agree. Yeah. By the way, guys, if you open the templates repository, you will see a table there that tells you what are the actual templates that are currently available for what types of nodes. Yeah, so there's a reference.
Excellent. All right. How about Renato? Question for you. Do you, and I don't think I saw it in there, do you have a way of doing, and I think you may have mentioned this a bit with the API, do you have a way of doing bulk imports yet through the tool? Or is that more of, I guess, a future
No.
state?
That I'm planning that for a future stage. Right now, it's only one by device
Device by
to
device.
assign vulnerabilities.
Sure. Have you considered, at least as part of that, getting sample like vulnerability type reports that might be out there to assist in how you bring that data in?
So right now about the how to bring vulnerability, I'm relying a lot on the NIST API, CVE APIs.
Okay.
I'm just copying that how they display it.
Oh, you muted yourself there. I'm not sure if that was
Yeah,
intentional.
okay. Oh, I'm back.
Okay.
So that's I think I just copy how the NIST API presents the data.
Sure. Yeah, and I mentioned this as you were wrapping up, the way that I had always encountered this data as a network engineer is I would get handed a PDF or an Excel document that said, okay, here's every CSV, or here's every, sorry, every vulnerability that we found here, the devices that we found them on. And I really like the idea that you could take a report like that and maybe edit the columns a little bit by name and just bring that into NetBox with your plugin helping to do that tracking. I could see that being, again, useful for the security groups and the engineers behind there to say, all right, we acknowledge that this vulnerability exists on this device, and then remediate it however you need to remediate it, and then be able to clear that out. That could be, there could be a cool collision of the tools of your tool and Alex, your tool, to where you could do some modeling more or less. Okay, let's make sure that the vulnerability has been taken care of or something along those lines. So there's definitely some fun overlap that these ideas can lead to.
Yes, correct. That's the intent.
About reporting, I thought a bit in the control models. Let's say you have some kind of control and you have some recurrence for the control. For example, something that your team has to do is kind of periodicity, weekly or daily. Then you can set up some kind of field for that control and manage if that recurrence is occurring into the journals. You can create a NetBox report based on that.
Nice. Yeah, definitely looking forward to see where you go with it next. I can name a couple of my previous employers, their security groups, that they would love to be able to make those correlations and sort of do a check-in. Okay, has this been taken care of? Is this still out there? Yeah, that's even if you could do some, granted, down the road, once the API gets more mature, some direct integration between some of the automated vulnerability testing tools that can exist inside of environments, that would be even more interesting, to have a tool run and then automatically create that vulnerability inside of NetBox and then check it again later and clear it out. So that's, I'm just getting ideas at this point, sorry. That runs us up to about 5 minutes left. I don't want to hold everyone if nobody has any other questions or just anything else that they'd like to bring up. We'll take maybe 10 seconds of silence here to mean that we're all done for the day, but let's go ahead and give that a little time to settle. All right, so in chat, Maggie shared one more time the survey. If you do have 2 minutes, please fill out that survey for us. It really helps us out, helps us shape the future of these calls. Our presenters, again, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. One more time, if you would like to be a presenter on here, share something, please reach out to us. We would love to have you on and have you be part of a future call. But unless anybody chirps up, we're going to head and close down a few short minutes here early. And thank you all again.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.